Recognizes Representative Sherman.
Madam Secretary, I hope you'd focus on the aid that Armenia needs as a result of well over 100,000 people being ethnically cleansed from Artsakh and now living in Armenia. And I hope that you direct our ambassador to Pakistan to visit Imran Khan in prison to demonstrate our dedication to the rule of law and to visit Dr. Afridi. This is in prison. This is the man that did more for America than any foreigner since Lafayette, and he languishes in a Pakistani jail. He helped us get bin Laden. Now, I'm inspired by our chair. He talks about Congress not doing its job for 15 years and not focusing on how the State Department was run. I was here. 20 plus. I was here for the 20 years. We did, and if you'd watched us on C-SPAN 3, you would have seen Congress do a good job. But today's Congress has been canceled because congressional leadership needs 6 weeks to figure out an excuse for not revealing the Epstein files or limiting those revelations only to the very few papers that are in the grand jury testimony. The chair talks about measurable outcomes. I've been here for 30 years. How many times before today have we canceled Congress in order to carry out a pedophile protection project? 0. It's measurable until now. But measurable outcomes, you don't get that way by looking at 1/10 of 1% and finding one mistake or even a collection of a few mistakes that the State Department and the USAID made. If we did that, we'd cancel the Dodger season because they committed an error last night. Measurable outcomes. We've got the Center for Global Development measuring that 3.3 million people will die this year because of the gutting of USAID. We've got Boston University demonstrating that 300,000 people have already died as a result of that. We've got the Secretary, Rubio, coming to the table you're sitting at there and saying 0 people have died. Do you stand by the Secretary in saying that when the richest man in the world took food and medicine from the poorest people in the world, that has resulted in 0 deaths? Because we want measurable outcomes. Is it 0?
Thank you, Congressman, for that question. And
I'm
I
asking,
very much stand by
I asked a yes or no question. Madam Secretary, I asked a yes or no question. I want a yes or no answer. If you don't want to do that, I'll simply go on.
You're asking me
do you stand by the statement of the Secretary of State that 0 people have died in the world as a result of the gutting of USAID? Do you stand by it or not? Yes or no?
Thank you, Congressman, for your question. I stand by what Secretary Rubio says.
Thank you.
And I'm happy
thank you, because I've got more
to
questions.
expound if you give me an
I
opportunity.
would point out that those people will die chiefly as a result of malaria, AIDS, and tuberculosis. That disease will infect millions of people in poor countries. It will then replicate, mutate, and migrate back here in stronger form. And I know, so I want to ask the question, the State Department has no system to measure how many Americans will die when this more virulent disease comes here because the richest man in the world took medicine away from the poorest. But we've got U.S. taxpayer dollars buying 500 metric tons of emergency food that was destroyed by the State Department. That's measurable. And 80,000 doses of Mpox vaccine that were pledged to African nations are about to be destroyed. Are you focused on how we're going to literally burn taxpayer dollars by burning vaccine that is in the State Department warehouses?
I'm focused on all these things.
Thank you. Well, I hope you will give us a measurable result and tell us what the cost is of the loss, the burning already of the 500 metric tons of emergency food and the 800,000 dosages of Mpox vaccine. Please respond for the record how many taxpayer dollars were burned. Finally, Carrie Lake testified before us that we couldn't trust the viewership and listenership numbers from Voice of America. Can we trust those numbers? They are measurable. Do you trust the numbers as to what the listenership was?
I'm not sure that's relevant to the P family issues, but I'm happy to take
Public
that question.
diplomacy is very much part, and you can't do public diplomacy without broadcasting. Of course, we're going to try, having gutted Voice of America and its sister stations. I'll point out that those were also Trump administration numbers that Carrie Lake said we couldn't trust. So it's glad to know who she trusts. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Gentleman yields back. We now go to the gentleman from California, Mr. Sherman, for 5 minutes.
I want to echo the gentleman from Maryland. I can't agree with him more. The world is diverse, and the job of the State Department is a relationship with the world. Okay, you've got to decide how much effort to put in the process of giving visas, particularly business visas, tourist visas. Business people come here to buy products, some of them made in my district. Tourism is a big deal from Los Angeles. And time and again, I get calls from people who are delayed for a year, 2 years, sometimes 3 or 4 months. I was in the business world before I came here. I know our chair has spent a lot of time in the business world. I've never seen a good business deal that can wait 3 months for the meeting. Has the State Department ever even tried to calculate the enormous harm that you do to our economy by basically telling people in a lot of countries, don't try to do business in the United States, it's a huge hassle. Don't try to visit the United States, there are beautiful vistas elsewhere, and it's a huge hassle to get here. Has there been any cost-benefit analysis of the decision to have what has got to be the slowest visa granting process of any foreign ministry in the world?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. It's a supreme joy of mine in this seat to be able to manage consular affairs at the Department of State. We are responsible for taking a look at visa fraud, passport fraud, human trafficking, illegal immigration on a regular basis. You specifically are pointing out the visa.
It was pretty much a yes/no question. Has there ever been an analysis?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes.
So you have an analysis that says that the delays in issuing business and tourist visas are not costing America billions of dollars of economic activity?
The median wait time for all visas for consular affairs globally is 1 month.
Oh, that's great if your business deal wants to wait a month. And by the way, I get calls all the time, particularly from India, from Pakistan, where the delay is 4, 5, 6 months.
Would the gentleman yield to?
I'll yield to the chair, yes.
Following up on that, since we do see the same situation, you're saying how long between the time you actually get the appointment, you actually get there. You are aware that it can be months, many months, sometimes beyond belief, before somebody can get the appointment that goes there. So the 1 month may be a wonderful average, but you know, Abraham Lincoln told us you could drown if you were 6 foot tall in the average 5 foot depth river. The average doesn't tell the story that the gentleman's talking about of delays of months before you even get an appointment.
And I would hope that you would do the analysis, because there are a lot of businesses that can't wait a month, and a lot of places in the world where that visa to first get the appointment and then the appointment is a month after you get it is many, many months. Okay, we fired a bunch of people. You wanted to reduce the number of staff. And it makes sense to look at the organization chart and see some boxes and say, well, we don't need a person in that box, we don't need a person in that box. But what I understand you did is, if you had a superb employee in the box that you don't need, you didn't move them to another box, you fired them, and then you could have an underperforming employee in a box you're keeping, and you're keeping that employee. Did you evaluate the capacities and performance of individuals and then put them in the boxes you wanted? Or did you just fire anybody who was in a box that seemed like we don't need that box?
Congressman, the reduction in force is all about functions and not the individual, not people.
Yes, but if you want to perform this function and you have a great person that's performing a function you don't need, why not keep the great person and have them do the function you want instead of firing people based, because in the State Department, you guys are moving people around from function to function. It's a
what
game of
we do.
musical
It's
chairs.
what we do.
If somebody happened to be 6 months ago a great performer in a great function, they still have a job. But if somebody was a great performer and they've recently been transferred to a function you don't need, that great performer is out, right?
In this instant, Congressman, if someone has been RIFed, start last Friday, they will have the opportunity to apply for a job that absolutely fits their skill set, their experience, and their language capabilities if that's part of the job.
But
we have a.
as far as immediate decisions, you've retained certain underperforming employees and you've terminated some spectacular employees because you didn't evaluate the individual employees and all of their experiences. You just said, well, if in the musical chair games that is the State Department, they happen to be in a box we don't need, they're out. They can apply for something else, unless if they're really good, they'll find a job in the private sector. I believe have I gone too long?
Well, you've gone as long as I'm going to let you go, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now go to the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Keating, for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just concerned, when you fired over 1,000 employees, and you know, eventually, you're going to have to replace those people, new people coming in. What's your pitch to those people after you've just fired 1,000 career people?
Congressman, I'm afraid I didn't hear the exact question. What's the?
I just said, you just fired more than 1,000 employees.
Right.
Eventually, you're going to have to recruit and bring new people into the service. So what's your pitch to these people after you've just fired these career people that are thinking of making a career here? I mean, what do you say to them? Maybe you'll get lucky. Maybe if you take an allegiance to something and beforehand. I mean, what if you had a son or daughter and they're thinking of career and they want to become a foreign service person and have a career here? Would you be worried that embarking on a career where career people just got ruthlessly fired?
Congressman, there's never a perfect time to conduct a reduction in force. We are very aware of that. We took we did everything we could with as much heart as we could when we went through and exercised and implemented this reduction in force on Friday.
Please, I have 5 minutes, but I don't believe that. You know what my son or daughter would call that? BS. Okay. This was just done so ruthlessly. So let's not even go there, because I don't have time for that. I'm concerned about the future after you've done this, and I'm concerned too. So many of the people that I know that have made careers and people that I talk to that had careers, a lot of those things occurred in the university. Have you ever spoken to U.S. diplomat in residence?
I have, sir, yes.
Do you see the value of that position?
In many instances, absolutely.
So you've got these young people. What would you tell them if it was your son or daughter, about job security?
Mm-hmm. I will say, Congressman, you are perhaps referring to some of the details and fellowships that we have in the State Department that take place with other government agencies, with DOD, with non-governmental organizations, with state and local governments.
I'm also
as
talking
well
about
as with
people,
people with Congress.
at the college stage, post-college stage, they're thinking making careers. This is going to, you don't think this would damage the future potential to hire the best going forward?
We made a concerted effort, sir, to put in place an organizational structure that matched the foreign policy goals of this administration.
Well, I'll tell you this, those goals don't include recruiting the best down the road coming forward. I'm also concerned, too, when you're looking at major events like the Olympics in 2028 and what's going, are we going to have the people in place? I know the Secretary of State said, don't worry about it. But I don't see how in some of these countries we're going to have the people in place to do big functions like that.
Congressman, we feel quite good about being able to welcome visitors to the United States for the FIFA World Cup, as well as America 2025 and the Olympics in 2028. I will tell you that the majority of the folks that we expect to come for the FIFA World Cup will be coming from Mexico and Canada. So those folks, for the most part, have visas and are able to come into the United States. We have all of government effort to ensure that we are prepared and ready for the onslaught of visitors that we absolutely welcome to the U.S.
Glad,
for the Cup.
remember those words when the time comes, because the way you're progressing with this and the things you're doing don't inspire confidence that that's going to be the place. And invariably, you can look right down this row, and it's our offices that get these calls all the time when these things aren't undertaken properly. I just want to touch, too, I don't have much time, on the cuts to the consulate offices that have occurred. And the danger, the dangers actually that represent not having those in place in places like France and Germany.
Well, I can tell you that with the reorganization and the reductions in force that took place last Friday, there are no cuts to the number of personnel in the Consular Affairs Bureau. We have part of that whole reorganization.
My time's running out. So the cuts in there's no cuts in the fraud prevention office. There's no cuts in the
No, sir.
consular systems
No, sir.
and technology office.
No, sir.
That's not the information I have. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. We now go to the gentleman from New York for his 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield my time to the ranker, Ms. Shaffilis McCormick.
Thank you, Representative. I just want to follow up on some questions. My biggest question is that you mentioned that you were directed to reduce by 15% for M. And what was the basis of that number? How did you derive that 15% that was supposed to be cut?
That 15%, Congresswoman, was not just for the M family of bureaus, but across the board at the State Department. When we started the discussions regarding reorganization, we weren't looking at a specific number to cut, a certain percentage, but rather we worked with our undersecretaries, with career and foreign service personnel to make sure that we got that
So that
right.
15% was across the board?
Across the board at the State Department, yes.
Okay, my next question, I just want to clarify some statements. So when it comes to the consular affairs, there seems to be a discrepancy as far as the cuts, because we have reporting that there were cuts made, and you're saying that there were no cuts made. Is that correct?
There were no cuts in consular affairs. I would just hearken back to what I said before.
So our information that we have is different. If we can reconcile that with
We'd be
further
happy to work with
information.
you on that. I think a lot of it stems back to the fact that the decision and the memo that was signed for reorganization and reduction in force is effective May 29th, and a lot of any of those people that were impacted were probably in a different place, maybe in an office that had been eliminated on May 29th.
Well, as long as we can reconcile it, because the information we have, it does say that there were cuts. And so we want to see that because we're concerned about the impact that those cuts would have specifically on processing passports and visas. So once we get that, we can reconcile that and move forward. The second thing I wanted to talk about also were some of the cuts that were made to personnel in Syria. Now, Syria has been an area that's been very fragile, and we're starting to see some an uptick or some hope in Syria. Reducing the number of the regional experts working on Syria at the same time as the State Department is working on reopening its embassy in Damascus is not just counterintuitive, but it also seems like a step backwards. It puts American citizens directly in harm's way across the Middle East. I recently returned from a CODEL with Chairman Lawler, in which the issue was raised directly. What steps are you taking actually to protect and make sure that we have adequate amount of personnel in Syria, but also to support so we can make sure Syria does not regress?
Thank you, Congresswoman, for that very good question. I'm thrilled to be able to have been part of the initial discussions about the changes that took place as a result of President Trump's trip to the Middle East a little more than a month ago. It was during that time that he was able to, the president himself was able to meet with the president of Syria, and as a result of that, quite frankly, everything in the Middle East has changed. We are looking forward to giving the Syrian people and the Syrian government an opportunity to, an economic and diplomatic opportunity to deal with the rest of the world. As in this seat, as Undersecretary of Management, I worked hand in glove with our Operations Center task force, which was put in place to make sure that we looked at all of.
Because my time is running out.
Please.
We want to know about implementation and the proper number of personnel to carry out that implementation. So with those cuts, we want to know how you're going to fill it. Do they have the accurate expertise to make sure that we're successful in Syria?
I have very good news for you, Congresswoman. I do work very, very closely with our ambassador to Turkey. His name is Tom Barrack. He is also the special envoy to Syria, and he's already made a couple of trips to Damascus to meet with the president of Syria. Many of the functions that are required to get the proper security in place and get the right team in place in order for him to make that trip successful and to raise the flag above our embassy there, our ambassador's residence there on May 29th, fall under the purview of the Management Bureau. And I was thrilled to be a part of that. We are looking every single day. Every time he wants to take a trip to the region, we work hand in glove with.
So as my time is running out, could we receive from your office specific details of what steps were taken so we can be able to make sure that we're on an upward course and not a downward trajectory by having the proper amount of personnel?
I'm happy, Congresswoman, to work with you on that, yes.
Thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Cunningham, I just want to follow up on one thing. In today's threat environment, cybersecurity and counterintelligence must be fully integrated into all levels of State Department operations, with functions spread across various bureaus and families. Coordination and clarity are critical. How is the Bureau of Management overseeing counterintelligence and cybersecurity functions department-wide?
Thank you, Chairman, for that question. In today's multipolar world where we are facing challenges that are so unique to the 21st century, obviously defending against cyber attacks is a very important function of the Management Bureau. We've identified and responded to two very specific nation-state cyber attacks recently, and we're doing everything we can to ensure that our records retention and records review of anything related to WhatsApp and Signal are part and parcel of what we do. We also have done something through this reorganization, sir, to make sure that all of the, in fact, I think it was 7 or 8 bureaus in the department had their own IT shops. And so we have consolidated that under our Chief Information Officer, and we'll get the economies of scale that we need out of that operation.
Furthering up on this, what steps are being taken to embed counterintelligence awareness and training into the daily operations of overseas missions?
That's a very important question, sir. There are a number of trainings that take place. In fact, we're reimagining the kind of training that is necessary. Earlier, I think one of your colleagues mentioned the Foreign Service Institute. We're making sure that we have the right kind of training and skill sets in place that will address any counter-terrorist issues before they head off and go overseas. In fact, I think next week I'm going through 2-day training just to make sure that I understand what that training entails and make sure that it also matches our goals in the America First foreign policy agenda.
Appreciate that. I thank the witness for his valuable testimony, as well as the members for their questions. I thank the ranking member as well. The members of the subcommittee may have some additional questions for the witness, and we will ask you to respond to these in writing. Pursuant to committee rules, all members may have 5 days to submit statements, questions, and extraneous materials for the record, subject to the length limitations. Without objection, the committee stands adjourned.
Thank you. Chair now recognizes Representative Sherman from California for 5 minutes.
China controls most of this market. Is that because China is uniquely blessed by ores of all these rare earth minerals, or is that just because China decades ago decided to do the mining, which is difficult, and the processing, which I believe is even more difficult? I'll ask any of the witnesses.
Let me just say, if I can, very quickly,
Yes.
everything you just said was correct. They did something nobody else wanted to do. And if you won't do it in your own backyard, don't expect someone else to do it. China filled the void, and they saw it back when we got into the WTO in 1990s. And they went after where could they capture some markets and basically hold us hostage. And they've done it extremely, extremely efficient.
But other countries in the world have the ore deposits and could have done it. China did it.
China put the resources to it, yeah.
Gotcha.
They put the money to it.
There are those who advocate that America should have a strategic cryptocurrency. What? I guess one of our witnesses needed to leave. A cryptocurrency reserve, which seems bizarre. I've never heard of a short of cryptocurrency. As a matter of fact, if you want to get some Mongoose coin or some Skippity toilet coin, that's available to you right away, as are all the currencies. Do we have a rare earth minerals strategic reserve of any significance?
We have a defense reserve, which is woefully underfunded and not terribly well stocked, wherein there are some critical minerals. I don't have insight into what.
And that's not designed to support our economy. That's just designed to allow us to make weapons that we might not otherwise.
For defense.
And I'd point out we have a strategic petroleum reserve that we should be refilling now, because oil is under $70, and both administrations, particularly the prior ones, said that they would refill the reserve when oil went below 70, and that hasn't been done, but we continue to hold over $10 billion worth of cryptocurrency for reasons I have yet to figure out. China wants us to sell them the most advanced chips. NVIDIA is apparently going to be allowed to do that. To what extent did they get that incredible concession from us, because otherwise they wouldn't sell us the rare earth minerals? Was that their big stick?
I'm not gonna, I have no inside information on that one. But I will say that its dominance, China's dominance of critical minerals is a weapon, and they weaponize it, and they're good at it.
What other countries are moving toward developing rare earth minerals in a major way?
Australia is a big, is very much in the game. The Japanese are one of the leaders in some of the refining and magnet production as well. There's actually joint development programs with those three countries already in a company or two.
Now, China has lower labor costs than us and most of those other countries. Is a low labor cost critically important to being able to be competitive in this business?
I think when we talked about the rare earths, it's more than just the labor. It's also the cost of the capital to run the plants. And I think what someone has already alluded to, the way in which they do it is a manner that would be objectionable in the United States or in most other Western countries.
What would be objectionable in the United States?
The way in which they refine the rare earths. It's
Are you
toxic.
talking about the local
Correct.
environmental
Correct.
impact?
That's right. That's right.
If you spend a bit more money, can you refine these minerals without and still meet the community standards we expect in America?
For sure, yes. That's what I think the announcement was, we talked about earlier, the MP announcement. That's what they're seeking to do. There are other companies that are doing it as well.
Thank you.
Of course you can. I mean, it goes back to capital, and the fact that the PRC doesn't have the same standards that we do, environmental standards, labor standards. But that's an opportunity. That's why countries want to
We
invest.
certainly have capital. Much of it we bring in from China, and I'm going to yield back 10 seconds.
If I can just say one thing to you.
Yes, go
As far
ahead,
as, you have United States, you have Canada, and you have Australia. Three main caches of where we know we have critical minerals we all need. Then you have the ability of Japan to do the refining. And South Korea is coming on strong, too. So these are all allies of ours in the free world. It's something we should be building an alliance with.
Member for our Capital Markets Subcommittee, Mr. Sherman.
First, a parliamentary inquiry. Since the last speaker had an extra 30 seconds, can I have an extra 30 seconds?
Right.
I would be happy to do that.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with you that special drawing rights should be increased only with congressional input, and I agree with Mr. Huizinga that we have to focus on Burma, Myanmar. I ask unanimous consent to put in the record a chart showing how the value of the dollar compared to other currencies has declined precipitously since Trump's so-called Liberation Day, and to also put into the record a CBO report issued just an hour ago that shows that Republican proposals to change Medicaid would in one case take 1.5 million people would lose their Medicaid benefits, and in another proposal would cost 3.9 million Americans their Medicaid benefits.
Without objection.
I also ask unanimous consent to put in the record a letter I sent to the Secretary, responded to by his Assistant Secretary, dealing with direct file, which means you don't have to pay TurboTax because the IRS has the software. And the response that I got, an absurd response, was basically, well, as long as, we just want to make sure TurboTax makes a lot of money, so we're not going to do that. And I would point out that the IRS could send every American, for their voluntary use, a proposed first draft of the tax return, since you already have the W-2, you already have the 1099, and you don't have all the input errors that come from people doing their own returns. But that is something that your administration is stopping. I would ask you, Mr.
Without objection.
Yes. I ask you, Mr. Secretary, to provide for the record within 1 week your best estimate of when the U.S. will hit the debt ceiling and exhaust our borrowing capacity. Can I count on you to provide that for the record?
Sir, the so-called X date is a moving target.
I'd like your best shot.
As I stated yesterday, we are moving on to the warning track, and we don't want to be on the warning track. And
I would ask you to provide the Congress the best information you can, but I'm going to go on to another question. I represent one of the two areas devastated by the Los Angeles fires. I spoke directly and on camera to President Trump and asked him to exempt building materials from these tariffs. The National Association of Home Builders says that these tariffs will add $11,000 to the cost of these fire victims rebuilding their homes. Can you assure us that in a country where we have a devastating housing shortage in general, but we have thousands of people in Los Angeles who have to rebuild their homes in particular, that these fire victims are not going to face this additional cost to rebuild their home?
I will look into that matter, and I was...
That is exactly what the president said in January.
I was in Los
so
Angeles
far.
this weekend, and I toured the devastation.
Thank you. I hope you saw the devastation of the Palisades, and I hope you won't be imposing another $11,000 cost on every home builder. Now, as to capital markets, where I devote most of my time, all of us on the subcommittee agree that we're trying to get people to invest in American stocks and build the American economy. And in fact, our tax code has hundreds of billions of dollars of incentives to get people to invest in America. China also has incentives to get the Chinese people to invest in Chinese stocks. But there's a difference. China only provides those incentives to Chinese people if they invest in Chinese stocks. American billionaires like investing in China, making tens and hundreds of millions of dollars in profit. Can you think of a reason why the American tax code should provide enormous tax benefits like the capital gains allowance to American billionaires who invest in Chinese stocks? Why is that in our national interest?
Sir, it's not just available to billionaires. If you were to buy...
Right, so why do we want to encourage...
buy a Chinese ETF, a very...
Why would we be neutral on whether I buy an American ETF or a China ETF? Don't we prefer American capital to be invested in America, or are we just fine with encouraging Americans to invest abroad?
Well, sir, we don't want to close the capital account, and we do want investors to be able to maximize their judgment where they should invest.
Let me go on to one more thing.
I have said I wouldn't bet against the U.S., but
please, next question.
People can.
Next question. Abu Dhabi and United Arab Emirates just announced that they were going to give $2 billion to a stable coin
put forward by World Liberty Financial, this stablecoin pays no interest. So you and I are both finance people, just want to check my math. Assuming a 4% rate of return, is this interest-free loan of $2 billion worth $80 million every year to World Liberty Financial and its Trump owners?
Sir, I haven't seen that. I don't know the expense ratio, and as far as I know, no stable coins pay interest.
So the New York Times is wrong. Please read the article. I yield back.
Representative Sherman.
We all miss Jerry Conley, and I do not think that he would want us to be passive in our questioning here today. Mr. Chairman, it's our job to oversee the State Department. You can't do that by having think tank witnesses come before us. Our job isn't to oversee the think tanks. In 2023, we had 44 government witnesses. This year, we have our first. And I hope very much that we have all not only the secretary, but the undersecretaries and assistant secretaries so that we can really do our job. Secretary Rubio, in the 1970s, there was a powerful Middle East monarch who claimed to be a friend of the United States, may very well have been, claimed to be at least agreeable to Israel. And so in the 1970s, we transferred enormous, sophisticated weapons to him. In 1979, the Shah was deposed, and all those weapons were in the hands of the Ayatollah. Today, MBS wants a nuclear weapon. But he says what he wants is a nuclear cooperation agreement. Well, we have a nuclear cooperation agreement with the United Arab Emirates and Turkey and Morocco that all provide for a gold standard of safety. Can you assure us that you will not enter into a nuclear cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia that does not have that same gold standard of security to make sure they're not building a nuclear weapon?
Well, first I will tell you that there has been no conversation about entering into one. For example, during the recent trip.
Can you, I've got limited time.
I can't. So here's the thing. I can
Sir,
tell you.
either give me a yes, give me a no.
Well, I'm going to
let me
give
go
you
on.
my answer if you want my answer.
I want a yes
this is not
or
a game
no.
show.
Reclaiming my time.
Well, reclaim your time, but it's not a game show. I get to answer. These are complex questions. Let me answer.
Mr. Secretary, I'm reclaiming my time.
I
The
don't know what that means.
filibustering
I've never
takes
been-
place in the Senate, not here.
I'm not filibustering. I'm trying to answer your question.
You're trying. Let's go on to the next question. With regard to Iran, can you assure us that you will continue sanctions on Iran until they verifiably agree to abandon all enrichment? That's a yes or no question.
No, it's not.
Well, can you give me a yes or no, or should I go on to the next
We
question?
believe that Iran should not be allowed to enrich uranium. Correct.
You believe that it should,
We believe that an acceptable deal with Iran is one in which they cannot enrich, because if they can enrich, they can weaponize.
I know why we don't want, I asked you, will we continue the sanctions until they verifiably agree to get rid of
You
the
have no
enrichments?
worry about us. The worry was the previous administration. This administration
Sir,
has
your
been
refusal to give me an answer is loud and clear.
No, well, I'd like
Is
to answer your
reclaiming
question.
my time. Mr. Chair, you told us about all these wonderful business deals that were announced in the Middle East. It's reminiscent of the first year of the first term of Donald Trump, where he announced a $10 billion investment by Foxconn in Wisconsin. It is still an empty field. I am sure that the only deals announced in the Middle East that will actually happen were the bribery deals, the $400 million plane and the $2 billion Abu Dhabi will put into the cryptocurrency sponsored by Mr. Trump. TikTok. Mr. Secretary, you led the effort to say that it shouldn't be controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. We passed a law with your help. That law requires that we ban TikTok now because all of the expiration dates have expired. But instead, we saw Chinese interests affiliated with TikTok transfer $300 million into the Trump coin, which is a pure gift. It's $300 million for nothing but monopoly money. And so there's a word in Mandarin for this. It's called bribery. And it raises the question that I'll ask you to respond to for the record, and that is there any statute this administration will not violate for a $300 million Chinese bribe? We next focus on USAID. Musk gutted it. he said no one died as a result. Or do you agree that no one has died yet as a result of the chainsawing of USAID? Yes or no?
I'm sorry, the question is, has anyone what?
Has anyone in the world died because of what Elon Musk did?
Listen.
Yes or no, reclaiming my time. If you won't answer, that's a loud answer.
No one has
Put
died
up
because of
the
USAID.
the people who have died
That's a
as a
lie.
result of cutting off the oxygen of a woman in Burma and denying HIV/AIDS treatment to those in Africa. They are dead now at the hands of Elon Musk and his co-conspirators.
Chair
I
now
yield back.
recognizes Representative.
And over again, Russian propagandists tell us you can't trust the VOA. They're a phony organization. They tell a lot of lies. And you are here today repeating that Russia propaganda point. Again and again and again, Chinese government agents tell their people, do not believe the voice of America. They tell lies. And you are here repeating that Chinese propaganda point. What's particularly illustrative is my colleague said, you know, you have 300 to 400 million listeners per week nationwide, worldwide, and you said you can't trust that number. It comes from the government. That number is quite consistent with the numbers issued by the Trump administration in 2017 and 2018. Everybody in this room knows that I don't trust Donald Trump. Now they know you don't trust Donald Trump. Having administered that agency for 4 years, issues numbers as to how many listeners they have, and you say don't trust them.
That's because
Now, excuse me, it's my time.
Trump.
Ms. Lake, do you know the rules here? Follow the rules. Now, you had your opening statement. This is my 5 minutes. Mr. Putin wants to weaken America. There are those in America who want to help him. Those who want to help Putin know that they can't just scuttle an American aircraft carrier. So they're trying to do something that is far more dangerous to our role in the world and our national security, and that is to scuttle our international broadcasting. Now, we have a bipartisan Armenian caucus, 2 chairs, 2 co-chairs. You have eliminated all Armenian language broadcasting. Did you consult with any of the chairs or co-chairs of the Armenia caucus in Congress before you cut off that broadcasting? That's a yes or no question.
Nope.
That's how decisions are made. And I'm sure you didn't consult with the U.S. ambassador in Yerevan either. I'd like unanimous consent to put in the record a report from the U.S. Office of Special Counsel detailing the terrible administration of USAGM during the latter months of the Trump administration. I'll point out that Ms. Lake tells us how terrible it is that she can't get information. You know who really needs information? Congress. You know who's sitting behind you? Mr. Michael Pack, the former under Trump director, same job you have, who we had to try to subpoena to come here and give Congress information, and we got stonewalled. But had we had Mr. Pack here, in your testimony, you talk about how there's waste, and we would have detailed all the waste of your Trump-appointed predecessor, and how the $1.6 million of personnel claims that you cite occurred chiefly under the Trump administration. So you're here basically saying that you don't think that we can't have international broadcasting because you can't run it. The idea that you say, well, China is telling Voice of America how to broadcast. Of course you try to interview Chinese diplomats. You interview members of Congress. That does not mean, I tell all the LA Times what they should do all the time. They tend not to listen. Every journalist is given advice by everybody in the world all the time. Now, I think Ms. Kim did a good job of illustrating the problems with closing down our broadcasting efforts. Our soft power is of critical importance, and I think Putin would be very happy Now, as I pointed out, there are many settlements of due to law breaking and violations that you cite, and of course, they occurred back in 2020 under Mr. Pax. No wonder he refused the subpoena. No wonder he wouldn't testify here. No, I will give you credit. You're here. And you're here defending the indefensible, which is that America should be silent on the world stage. Our ability, bombs are powerful. Truth is more powerful. Taking the bombs away from our military would be bad. Taking truth away from our public diplomacy efforts is worse. I yield back.
I now recognize